Hello, I'm Ibo Pedersen. I'm a Danish pig farmer. I've done some studies on glyphosate levels in feed compared to deformities, abortions, and fertility problems. And I've also done a changeover from GM soy to non-GMO soy and so on, seen a lot of health benefits. That will be in part 2. I'll talk about that. This part is focused on glyphosate as an endocrine disruptor. It is an endocrine disruptor, and I will prove it. So hang on. This is from inside my pig house. My pigs are walking free. I've been very concerned about. I don't want to have them boxed up, and we have lots of fresh air in the pig house. Most farmers are not aware that when they spray Roundup on the fields, there is a side effect. Everything comes with a side effect. There's no free lunch in nature. And you spray and you kill a lot of biology. And then you harvest it, you bring it into your pigs, and what happens? You get a lot of health issues with your pigs. And if you weigh them up as a farmer, if you feed all your grains, you would never find it profitable to use Roundup in the fields. But if you're selling it on, it's somebody else's problem. It's not your problem. And that's, I think, you should have a connection here with what's happening in the herd. And I can assure you that it's not stopping with what's happening in the herd. It goes on to humans, and we see the same effects as I've seen in my pig house. I have 32,000 pigs. I conducted a pig study over a 2-year period. We had 32,000 pigs born into it, and with known levels of Roundup residues in the grain. It is notable, Roundup residues, because if you compare it to a lot of the scientific studies, they have used technical glyphosate. It's just glyphosate, and it's not with the so-called inert ingredients that actually helps it to penetrate cells and to it actually also, as studies shown, increase toxicity with more than 10 times as much. So it's every time that I talk about glyphosate in this study, it's actually what we are metering, but it is glyphosate-based herbicide that has been supplying the residues that is then metered in the feed. So here we have, we've seen stomach health issues, we've seen fertility problems, abortions, and congenital deformities. It all rises with the level of the glyphosate measured in the feed. My veterinarian, he was very taken by this study that we did, and he showed me photos from another herd, and I had to show this photo as well because it's just telling that it's not just me who sees this. My father has had a pig farm as well, with 50 sows from 1960 till 1993. And he has had more than 1,000 born every year, and maybe 1,500 every year. And he's never seen a head defect on a pig. He's never sprayed Roundup on anything he was going to feed, and he has never had a chance to have GMO soy. It came in 1996. So the pig food would have had no glyphosate in it. And he's never seen that on a very large number of pigs. And we see in my pig herd, we saw an increase from 0.2 parts million to 1 parts million. It's 0.2 gram to 1 gram per ton of food of glyphosate. We saw 5 times more deformities born, cranial, spinal, and legs only. There's lots of other type of defects, but we wanted to make sure we only take the ones that we cannot miss. There's 4 times the number of abortions. There's 0.95 pigs less born per liter. And that's statistical. Thomas Bøhn, professor in Trondheim University, he helped me make these data. This is the type of defects we see when it's cranial, microcephaly, the one on the right, next to my head, the bottom right, and the one on the top is also a microcephaly. The frontal lobe is just not finished. And I think it goes again for the one in the bottom. It had one eye hidden underneath there, and it had like a trunk instead of a nose. And the one on the top had absolutely no head. It was just that little bit of skin that sticks out in the front. You could take the microscope or the monocular, the enhancing glass, and put on, and you could actually see two slits, a slit for eyes, holes for nose, and a slit for the mouth. You could see that in that little lump. It has just not had a cranium to develop on. But the pig was live until it got born, and then it had no chance to get any air, so suffocated. This is spinal. When it's spinal, it typically goes bad somewhere along the spine, halfway down or further, and everything from there is just not right. And you could see that on these three pigs. We move on. This is also spinal, and the weakest type, or the light version of the defects, are the tail. That's, I would say, never anything that will take the life of the pigs. It'll just be born with a defect tail, and you can live with that. But if it's up in the top end of the chest and above, like the pig on the top right, you could see already the front legs looks like chicken wings. And it does take me with these pigs, because I remember that one. I had to pull it out of the sow, and it didn't. It was just terrible to see, because I know that it don't stop here. It don't stop with the pigs. We see this in humans as well. And well, you can see the one on the top had like lame all the way down. It was developed, but it was lame and stiff. These are also defects that I have seen. The ear, as I know, more than 15 children who has been born deformed in Denmark, and most of them are farmers' children. And what do you call it? It's types like the ears is the light version. Of course, it can be all the way into the brain. You don't know where it starts and it stops. And you have the one that has seized up the Virginia and anus. There's just like string down there, and there's no holes. Then you have a very large tongue, where the face is actually totally shaped around this tongue. We have the one where the abdomen is not in place. There's no stomach muscles. There's no nothing. I know children who is born like that here in Denmark. And the one on the bottom left, I can tell you exact, because it is part of 40 pigs that went to Germany for a scientific study, and deformed pigs. And that particular one there, it has the intestine, but there is just a place where it just stops, and then there's like a 2 centimeter bit before the anus, and this is not connected. So of course it got a full stomach. When we see the study, then there is a very clear connection. It's totally linear with a number of defects, pigs, deformities born, in comparison to the levels of glyphosate in the feed. If you have under 0.11 parts per million or under that, then you have 1 out of 1,600 born deformed with one of those 3 defects. If you have 0.2 parts per million, you have 1 out of 1,200. And if you have 1.13 parts per million, you have 1 out of 550 born deformed. If you have 2.26 parts per million, 2.2 grams per ton, then you have 1 out of 250 born deformed. But in Argentina, they have counted all the children in the villages where they have GM soy all the way around, and they spray with aeroplanes, and they use 30 to 40 liter Roundup per hectare when it's rife. they have 1 out of 17 born deformed. So how can that be that I don't see more defects in my pig house? Well, the reason is I only look at 3 defects. Every time that if I have 1 parts per million in the food, then I see more than 1 out of 80 born deformed with easy to see defects. And of course, doctors can go inside and see that you have heart issues, you have hole in the heart, you have something with your kidneys, you have something else inside you got that is not right, you have learning disabilities, you have many things. And the Argentinian doctors have seen an 400% increase in defects since GM soy came to the area. So my study actually correlates with the Argentinian study. And it is to be expected that the people who live with that lots of Roundup sprayed around them, they will be slightly higher dosed than my pigs in the high dose group. And then they're on par. Okay, so glyphosate levels in humans. Should we care? Yes, certainly. We are already in harm's way. The 2 top ones is sows. They have got similar, slightly bigger than what we see in humans in Denmark. Also, the top quarter of people in Denmark will be up on par with those pigs. I was when I got tested, and I don't eat GM soy or anything like that. I just eat from the local shop. But it's all what you are eating. Have you eaten a loaf of bread that has been sprayed down prior to harvest? You will bung out with that sort of level or higher. And so we are already in harm's way. Many people are over. You can see here that Sen Honeycutt and Moms Across America have done some great studies on humans in America, and I believe they found 2.7 parts per billion to 60 in urban USA population. And I think in another group they saw in breast milk, they saw 76 to 166 parts per million in breast milk. This looks like that maybe it likes to accumulate in some tissues. And if you have that amount in your breast milk, you would have all sorts of issues with your child. You would poison that child, and you would not feel very great yourself. So we have the levels of glyphosate as what is legal. It's 22 parts per million. There's 22 parts per 1,000 parts per billion. But we have lots of the blue ones. We have lots of things that happens way below that, and you can see it kills sperm at 0.1 parts per million, where 20 is legal. The trick is that you have to 1 to 2% of what you eat in your dry food will show up in your urine, and much like the same will be in your blood. So you have to be in the high end still if you have to say that I certainly can't make children because I've had too much glyphosate in me. But it will already damage your sperm. It will definitely make fertility problems, abortions, etc., like I've seen in my pigs. Andres Carrasco is a late scientist from Argentina. He was a brilliant man. He was expert in frogs. And with frogs, it's special. You can take at the 2-cell stage, this is really nerdy, at the 2-cell stage, you can inject the one side, the one cell with glyphosate, and you will have a defect only in that side, not in the other, because one cell governs the one side and one cell governs the other side. Specialty with frogs. And so he could do that, and he could actually prove that he could make one side defect and not the other. And he also put it in a dish with glyphosate herbicide and say GBH treated, and you can see some of the effect. Or you can go into look it up on net and see his results. Carrasco has mentioned Mike Pitt's study in one of his speeches, and he said that it was a really good study because it connects what he can see in frogs and insects and eggs and things and daphnes and everything else they were seeing it on the same thing. The pigs, you know what they are eating. You know they don't go out in town and drink or smoke or anything like that. They eat what you give them. And if you know what is in that, you can calculate without doubt that glyphosate is the culprit. And he can show it in his science work. We can show it with pig. And it's quite easy to see the similarities. You can see the pig on the top left. It has microcephaly. It has the same as a child on the right. It's very easy to see, and they will not have a long life. If you see the one on the bottom left, it's been a bifida. Okay, the child has been operated on already, and it's travesty. You can see the back legs and the legs of the child is exactly the same. Everything you see with pigs, you can guarantee you can also find in humans. This is the study we had made in Germany by Professor Monica Krüger, and together with some, you can see where doctors they come from, and some was from Sadat University in Egypt, and Monica is from Leipzig University, and my pigs and me. But it's what the study showed. It was 38 or 40 pigs we took down to Leipzig. I took down frozen, and then they cut them out and did all the studies they could, and did a lot of glyphosate tests on all sort of organ, heart, liver, lung, muscle, brain tissue, anything you could think of, and they come up with that. Basically, you can say where there is the most blood in your lungs, in your brain, in your kidney, and your liver, that's where you get the highest levels of glyphosate. Kidney is also the place where it's supposed to take it out of the body, but the levels of glyphosate, due to that there is a big gap, is because I have had different periods of feeding the pigs with higher or lower dose. When I fed them in the high dose, of course, the pigs bung out with the higher dose. So we're not able to see a correlation. But it also means that the way glyphosate does work, and that has been proven, that it simply stops the growth of limbs. If it was my hand, it would maybe stop here, and I would find here, I could then see on the pixel on my hand, I could see all the rest of the bones will be set off with nails and everything. They would just not have grown. That's the sort of defects it's likely to make. And with the microcephaly, it's simply just not finished. Or you can see all my defects. A statistic significance observation. Thomas Bøhn in Norway, he did all this statistic work, and he said there was 0.95 pig less born, and that's statistic proof, statistic sound numbers when you have higher levels of glyphosate. And the funny thing is, or the strange thing, I thought that all this will correlate with the day you inseminate. It don't. When we look at skeletal defects, I find out that it was day 35. That was when I could see that when I changed food, and then I started to. I would say, okay, from here we're 114 days on, then we will see more defect. No, they came before. So it was not what levels they had in when it's skeletal defects. It's not what they have in at the start. It's a bit different regarding what sort of thing in the body that get developed at that time, but it's about the late end of the first trimester, as a third into the pregnancy. And that threw us in the start. We did a lot of, we wanted to see statistic safe numbers with defects, but until we put 35 days in, we didn't find them. Does glyphosate bioaccumulate in mammals? Well, we tested our pigs' urine and feces, and we found out that in periods where they've been fed 0.2 parts per million in the dry feed, then we know how much comes into the pigs, because you know how much a pig eats a day. So we eat 1.6 ton feed a year in the digesting period, and that makes it 0.32 gram glyphosate per year enters a pig if it eats that whole year, say. And the total amount of slaughter per sow, the outgoings, that's calculated, and but we know that it has 0.1 gram glyphosate per year if it carries on like that for a year, the same as it has been eating in the period where we took the test. And so we can assume from that there is 0.22 grams of glyphosate a year per sow that is either broken down inside the sow or it's accumulated in some way. And there is studies that show that glyphosate, that is actually glycine and phosphate, can get mistaken by your body as glycine. So it can be stuck into your muscles. And some people will say, okay, but then it's not glycine, it's glyphosate. Yes, and that can then cause the protein to be misshapen because it has a phosphate thing on it. So you have a broken protein with all the risks that can come up with. So bioaccumulation in my pigs is certainly possible, and it definitely shows that if you take the pig study we had made in Germany, a scientific study, we can see that there is glyphosate residues in all of the pig's organs. So of course we can say from that at least some of it will stay in the body of the pigs, because else you couldn't have had these rather higher than this amount here levels of glyphosate in those little piglets. So yes, it does very possible bioaccumulate. Glyphosate's life in the soil and how it circles around in the soil. If you spray glyphosate on your field to eradicate all the weeds before you are planting, some of the glyphosate will stay and get sucked up in the plant. It will stay in the plant as long as it is there, and it will come in the grains. If it's beans or whatever you're planting on the field, it will end up on somebody's plate. And if you do use GMOs and grow beans or maize or anything, then you are glyphosate you sprayed out is landing directly on the plants and will get sucked into the plants straight away. You will also get some accumulation from the ground because it has got roots in the ground, so they will also suck it in. But the plants are resistant to dying of glyphosate or Roundup. So, so they won't actually die, but they will keep it in them for as long as they are living. And then at harvest time, it will get transported into the grains, the rest of the energy, and you will have the contamination of your plate again. The absolute most sinister way of using Roundup is spraying it as a desiccant prior to harvest. Because when you do that, you will hit a lot of the glyphosate will land on the plant, not very much will hit the ground. And that's the plant you're harvesting. And if it's barley that has an open grain where you can see the grain and it gets landed directly on it, you end up with more residues in the barley than you do in wheat that has got a cover shell. You actually can't hit the wheat, but the wheat will take it up with the juices. When it's ripening, it sucks up all the last energy that's available in the plant into the grains. With it goes glyphosate. Then the glyphosate will go into my mill, and if it was, and I will you feed it to the pigs, and then about 2%, maybe a bit more of it will travel into the meat. And so you can take the analysis from the scientific study in Germany. There was some of mussels, etc. I think it's more than 2% actually that will go into the meat. It could be a lot more. And then the rest of it will be going out with the feces and end up in a merry-go-round again, with being taken up by the plants and cycle around in this green cycle. Scientific studies that connect Roundup to deformities born. At a study by Delaware in 2003 found that a pregnant rat dosed with 500, 750, and 1,000 micrograms per kilo, days 6 to 15 after fertility, had increased skeletal deformities, abortion, skeletal abnormalities, including at doses that were not toxic to the animals. Malformations, they consisted of absence of bones, parts of bones, shortened and bent bones, asymmetric fusions, and clefts. The percentage of the altered features increased with dose. This is exactly what I've seen in my pig house. The only difference is, and that's very important to understand, I talk about glyphosate because that is what I meter. I send in to get analyzed for how much glyphosate is in the pig food. But actually, it's Roundup that has been sprayed on the GM crops, or the non-GM soya has had Roundup sprayed prior to harvest, and it sucks it up into the plant, and that is how I get the contamination in my pig food. But listen to this. They have used from 500 to 1,000 microgram per kilo of body weight for these rats. I have used 0.02 microgram per kilo body weight in my pregnant sows. This is way lower than this study. And of course, there is a reason to that. You are a scientist, you are looking for deformities and whatever it can do. You don't have 32,000 pigs to feed. You have 50 lab rats or 100 lab rats. And of course, you dose it up higher because you have this linear increase in numbers of deformities born when you come up in the dose. But remember, this dose that they fed to the rat is actually not a toxic dose in itself for the rats. So they didn't see any toxicity of it. They saw the endocrine disrupting effect of it. And that's very important to understand. And endocrine disrupting chemicals, we have an agreement about universally that they have to be phased out as soon as possible. And that's not actually happening without Roundup, because the industry keep claiming that it's not an endocrine disruptor, and they bribe some officials that sit and accept that we can carry on with using Roundup in the crops. There's a lot of evidence pointing to that glyphosate make deformities, make abortion and fertility problems, but there's also a lot of money trying to keep this chemical on the market, unfortunately. Here's a study that I was quite interested in. It was showing malformation in frogs, and what they've done is they've taken newly laid frog eggs, they have put them in a 1 cubic meter tank, if you like, and they added 3 grams of glyphosate, a Roundup herbicide, into this 1 cubic meter of water comparative, and left them in there for 2 days. Then they've taken them out, washed them, put them into a fresh pond for the rest of the developing time. And then there was 10% of the eggs that was perished or dead. And 55% of them got born with any type of deformity. This is in between the doses of the rats. They had a really high dose with up to 1,000 micrograms per kilo body weight, and this is 3 micrograms per liter, or say kilo, in the water that surround the eggs. And my pig study had 0.02 micrograms per kilo. So, but I still think that if you take the trajectory of my pig house finding, you will find that somewhere up along the scale, 55% is a lot born deformed. You will also find that it fits fairly well with the higher dose that is used in this water study, plus the fact that when you're talking aquatic environments, it's much easier for glyphosate-based herbicide to transport in liquids than it is in anything else. So it works super well for aquatic environments. Observation from other farms, because I noticed that BRF, which is the German authority that looks for glyphosate safety in Europe for all of EU countries, they say that it don't make all these problems, and it's just my farm that is a weird farm, and I have some strange sickness and what have you. But that's not the case. Any farmer has all these defects. I worked a place after I sold my farm, then I worked as relief worker, and we had 2,000 farrowings on this, 2,000 pigs born on this unit when in the period I was there, and we saw 19 deformed that I got to see. I was not the man in the farrowing house, so we have not a complete list here, but we can say all these defects exactly the same. There's one with 2 heads fused together. There's one with the one middle of the left. It had a big, like a plastic bag full of liquids on the top. and it burst. And we saw all these defects. You can see what they are. Another farm I went to work for, it was 500 pigs born in a week, and I had to do some work that I got hold of all the pigs doing. And so I said, can I take a camera in my phone? Yes, sure, take all the photos you like. And he had sprayed half the grain down, and he has used GMO soya. And it was barley he had sprayed down. There's more residue in barley than there is in wheat, because wheat is covered a little bit. And I told him I might expect to see 2 to 3, maybe 4 pigs born deformed in that week's group that I was going to operate on. And he didn't believe me. So I took the photos out and I showed him, and he said, okay, I see we have these defects as well. But farmers don't recognize it. It's just got the norm that pigs, when they are dead or alive, they look a bit different, and then they accept it. Okay. So a third farm, it was only one weekend, and it was 15 farrowings per week. So I 2 days started with 5 farrowings, and I saw this. I saw one with a tail, and I saw one that had a rear leg totally deformed. And also the same farm used to give medicine against ulcers in South, and that will come in part 2. I will speak about that GMOs make ulcers. The BRF, the Risk Assessment Authority in Germany and Europe, they have looked at my pig study, and they've said, it's just a single farmer, is something in his farm that does it. Other farmers has not come up with all these claims, so we cannot use his findings. They don't want to look at it. And Carrasco's research, they have also answered, because he has found it, and they actually say, okay, we have seen some studies that they can do this on chicken and larvae and insects and so on, but we have not seen it in mammals. Okay, I have. Hello, BRF, are you there? I have, and you're just neglected to look at it. And so, well, in the period, they accused me of having had a sickness or anything. We have not had a sickness at all in those 2 years on non-GMO soy. We have not used medicine in the farrowing house for diarrhea. Only when we got a load of sprayed down grains, then we had to use a lot of antibiotic again. My medicine use went down to a third in the farrowing house. The rest was simple. When we did the castrating, we did a preempt injection of antibiotic to spare the pigs from getting an infection. That was all we used as an antibiotic in there. Anyhow, we have seen, well, it's just BRF don't want to look at it. You can see what I've said here, and it should be considered again, because it's not just in a single farmer's case, it's everywhere. The Ecologist is an English paper. They have been writing about it. They are very good at writing about environmental issues, and you can hit up the Ecologist.org 2014, September 18, Change in non-GMO soy transformed health my pigs. And it's a very large article, and that could be quite interesting if you are interested to read about my pig study. Then Der Spiegel, if you speak German, you are welcome to hit it up on Der Spiegel. The title is in the top here. It's Der Spiegel is a very sincere paper that is known to have is very fact orientated. Professor Seralini from France, in the same article talking about the rat study he has made, that has been the world's most read public study. and you can read about that as well. There is a film called Transgenic Wars. It's a really clever made, award-winning documentary film. It's well, I'm proud to be the center of the film, really. My pig study is the one that has prompted the Paul Morang to making this film, and he got it sent in German and French television one evening, and then next week it should be sent in Holland. Monsanto tried by court, tried to get it stopped because it hurt their business, but they didn't succeed in Holland, but nowhere else on the world has it been shown. They succeeded. But it's on net now. It has been behind a paywall, but now it's come in the open, and you're welcome to see it. And it can be in French, German, I think, as well. Next time, I'm talking about GMOs, glyphosate, and mammal health, part 2. Changeover from GMO to non-GMO soya, observations, healthier pigs, no ulcers, less medicine use, and so on. Open the next one, and I'll meet you there.